Okay, let's get this showing. Okay. Welcome, everybody, to a series of meetings here at City Hall tonight for March 25th, 2024. The first meeting tonight will be Community Development. I'm calling Community Development to order. We have two items on the agenda. The first one is the approval of the Community Development meeting minutes from March 11th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Oswald and seconded by Mrs. Mitchell.
Question.
Question on the motion. All in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried. Item 2 is the matter of a liquor license transfer request by J.K. East River Incorporated, doing business as East River Convenient, 905 East River Street. The Elyria Police Department reported no issues, and the building department also reported no issues as it concerns the zoning. So, seeing that, is there any questions, or if anybody would like to make a motion? Yes, Mr. Oswald.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just questions. I haven't been in the store in a long time. It used to be one of the top businesses in that area. I know it seems like our convenience stores are turning into these hookah and smoke shops and stuff. So I'm hoping that is this a transfer from somebody that just purchased it? I'm assuming
From information I've received here, it appears that it may have been purchased by somebody else and they are transferring the liquor license.
So I'm hoping that it continues, to be a good place for the city over there. So that was it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Also, I would like to add that this would be a permit class C1 and C2, beer, wine, and mixed drinks in sealed containers for carry-out only, and D6 there will be on Sunday sales as well. So, any further questions or concerns?
Mr. Chair, seeing none, I'll make a motion that the city does not request a hearing.
Okay, motion has been made that the city does not request a hearing, and motion was made by Mrs. Mitchell and seconded by Mr. Schneider.
Question.
Question on the motion. All in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried. Okay, at this time, I would ask Mr. Tollett to please call Finance.
At this time, I'll call Finance to order.
Thank you, Mr. Tollett. The joint meeting with Community Development and Finance, there are three items. The first one is the approval of the joint meeting minutes from March 11th, 2024. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second. Motion made by Mr. Sarah, seconded by Mr. Schneider.
Question.
Question on the motion. All in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried. Second item on the agenda is the matter of review and approval of recommendations from the Elyria Economic Development Committee. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Through you. So every year we have the income tax review. We have 6 agreements, and the companies report back to the city regarding their accomplishments. So this is what they have in their agreement as far as they've increased their payroll or they did their project, they've maintained their headquarters in the city of Elyria. The reports are received by community development staff and it's reviewed by our staff and by finance. And then we make recommendations to the Elyria Economic Development Committee, and the Economic Development Committee makes recommendations to council. So that's what you have before you this evening. We have 6 that have met their contractual requirements. That's all of them. 5 of them will receive a reimbursement. One company's project is on hold, so their incentive contingency has not been met this year, so they won't be getting their reimbursement this year. But the 6 of them have met their contractual requirements.
Well, thank you very much. It's certainly good news. Are there any questions, concerns, or thoughts? Seeing none, I'll read the committee report. We have considered the matter of adopting the report of the Elyria Economic Development Committee, which met on March 11th, 2024. A resolution adopting the said report as per the attached. Can I get a motion from Community Development?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mrs. Mitchell, seconded by Mr. Oswald.
Question.
Question on the motion. All in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried.
On behalf of Finance, can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been moved and properly seconded.
Question.
Question's been called. All in favor, use the voting sign aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, moving on to the next item it's the matter of a request to forgive a lien on the property of 443 Metcalf Road. Community Development Committee member Scott.
Thank you. Patricia Sheen is the owner of 443 Metcalf. She entered into a CDBG emergency home repair agreement with the Community Development Department on February 25th, 2019 for a total contract of $11,017.50. As noted in your referral, there are repayment terms, one of those being if the owner transfers the property, the payment would become due and payable. So the owner did transfer the property to a trust on June 8th, 2021, and in accordance with the agreement, 60% repayment became due and payable at that time. We actually went to go satisfy this lien in February, not knowing that it had transferred ownership. The owner still lives in the property. She does have a lease in perpetuity with this. So after review of the file, had the applicant not actually transferred title into a trust, the loan would have been forgiven in February of this year. And because she has remained in the home, I feel that the intent of the program has been met and recommends approving the request to satisfy the lien. The homeowner is in attendance tonight if you have any additional questions or concerns.
Thank you. Okay. I'm going to ask the Law Director Deary to weigh in.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. My office has had some discussions about this situation with community development. Simply put, this type of situation was not contemplated with the CDBG home repair program. Although it's not an exceptionally unusual situation. Obviously, the homeowner is here and she can speak further to it, but based upon the correspondence that she sent to Director Scott, I would say the previous owner and current occupant established this trust for some estate planning purposes. She's still the occupant. However, our guidelines specifically, or our requirements specifically state that you need to be an owner and occupant, and if you cease being either, then the loan needs to be repaid. This is, again, not a situation that I believe is contemplated by our program requirements. Therefore, it was my office's recommendation that this matter be brought to council for council to make the ultimate determination. We believe that this situation fell outside of the realm of the community development director or the authority of my office, and that's why we're here. Again, I have no issues as far as what the intent is, but we felt that this was something that the council or the committee and then ultimately council should make a decision thereof. Okay.
Thank you, Law Director Deary. Mr. Schneider.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Law Director Deary, do you see maybe in the future changing the wording of this to where it would need to be like an arm's length transaction for it to null and void like what has just happened?
Through you, one of the questions that my office would need to look further into, and Mrs. Scott may already know the answer to, is I don't know what the federal requirements are with CDBG as far as if that would be allowed or not for us to put that sort of restriction on, or in fact they may require that sort of restriction. Again, it's definitely something now that we've had this type of scenario pop up that we'll look into.
Thank you.
Mrs. Davis.
Through you, Chair. Are you just now getting notified? You said this change was June of 2021?
Through you, yes, we do have a notification system set up with the county. However, we don't always see all of those. There are instances where, property transferred many years ago, and it isn't until it goes to transfer title again that we're made aware of this. So this is just one of those situations where, we didn't see it. Whether notification was given back in 2021, I don't know. But it's when we went to go satisfy the lien, is when this was caught.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, concerns, comments, thoughts? Okay, I'll read the committee report. We have considered the matter of a request to forgive a community development rehabilitation lien on the property of 443 Metcalf Road. This would be an ordinance authorizing the forgiveness of the said lien as recommended. Could I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Oswald, seconded by Mrs. Mitchell.
Question?
Question on the motion. All in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
Nay.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay, just,
Preview. It's a preview of what's to come.
okay, it's a preview of what's to come, as Mr. Schneider just said. Okay, so as we stand now, we had a unanimous vote of yay for community development. Okay, and I'll hand it over to Mr. Tolet.
That was tough. On behalf of finance, can I get a motion? So moved.
Second.
Motion's been moved and properly seconded.
Question.
Question's been called. All in favor, use the voting sign aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
One nay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you to everybody on community development and finance, but at this moment, there's no further items for community development, so I would recommend adjournment.
So moved.
Second?
Motion made by Mrs. Mitchell, seconded by Mr. Oswald.
Question.
Question on the motion. All in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried. Meeting adjourned.
Okay. Because Mr. Callahan was so expedient, we will get right into finance without a break, so I'll call finance to order. First item on the agenda is the approval of the finance meeting minutes from February 26th and March 11th. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. Motion's been moved and properly seconded. Question's been called. All in favor, please use the voting sign aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the matter of demolition charges to be certified to the Lorain County Auditor's Office, excuse me. This is a fairly standard procedure, but go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Farkas unfortunately was unable to attend tonight, so he asked me to present this information before the committee. So there are two board-up liens that are being requested. One is for 994 Salem Avenue, the other for 1825 Lorraine Boulevard. He did note that all notices have been sent in accordance with the policies. So like Mr. Tolet just said, it's pretty standard. And if you have any other additional questions or concerns, I don't know if the law department would be able to weigh in, or you can always reach out to Mr. Farkas.
Are there any questions from the committee or non-committee members? Yeah, Mr. Oswald?
Through you, Mr. Chair, is that Lorraine Boulevard? Is that the hotel?
Yes. Yes.
Can you maybe explain that? Is that's getting demolished? Whose property is that going into the city, or is that, or am I on the wrong building?
Through you, Mr. Chair. I cannot off the top of my head tell you which hotel this is, but this was a board up at the, that was initiated by EPD. So it was a security board up. So
I believe it was the second time that they've had the board this, yeah,
at least.
it may have been third or fourth time. So we passed those. Yes, Safety
Through
Service
you,
Director.
Mr. Chair, there have been a couple of instances where people have broken into the Days Inn, and so we've had to go back and reboard it up. So I think the mention of demolition charges might be a little bit inaccurate. It's actually for board up costs, but the same concept and the same authority to do so.
yes, through you, Mr. Chair, our ordinance refers to demolition and related expenses. So that may add to part of the confusion, but this is actually for board up costs.
Does that answer your question?
No, I guess, I'm sorry, I guess, is it going into the Port Authority, or is this going to be taken over by the city?
It's just for the board and not Bob.
Yes, this is just for boarding up costs.
Just boarding?
That we turn,
I thought it
which
was
is very
demolition. That's-
expensive. No, no.
Okay.
Are there any other questions from the committee? If not, I'll read the committee report. We have considered the matter of placing liens on the attached list of properties for boarding up and securing those properties. A resolution authorizing the said charges to be certified as liens to the Lorain County Auditor's Office as per attached. Can I get a motion?
So move.
Second.
Motion's been moved and properly seconded.
Question.
Question's been called. All in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 3 on the agenda, the matter of applying for the 2023 Project Safe Neighborhoods Grant. Chief Pelko, and I would ask that if you could, after this, if you could stay through number 8, please. Thank you.
Yeah, so I would like to apply and for the Project Safe Neighborhood Grant. We've been applying for this grant for the past several years. It's to help combat violence in the city. We collaborate with several large law enforcement agencies throughout Northwest Ohio. It's called the Northern Ohio Violent Crime Consortium. It's Toledo, Youngstown, Cleveland, Akron, Mansfield, Toledo, Canton, Akron. We all apply together with this grant with the same mission in mind, is to reduce violence. We're probably not going to exceed getting $30,000. It's total 100% reimbursement. We would like to apply for this grant, and we will be using for technology and in particular license plate readers and by purchase license plate readers in the city. So,
are there any questions from the committee? Yes, Mrs. Mitchell? Ms. Davis, please.
Through you, Chair. So we have applied for this grant. This is nothing new with us.
Nothing new. We apply for it every year. We get it every year. And we used it last year to put a couple license plate reader cameras up, I think, on Middle Avenue and Fuller Street.
Thank you.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. It's the 2024 grant, correct?
I think it is 2023. They're a little bit behind. Yep.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. Thank you.
Will you need this passed as an emergency because of the timeline?
The deadline's April 30th, so for us to apply for it. So
I would recommend then
Okay.
that we pass it as an emergency.
sounds good. Yep.
Okay. Are there any other questions for Chief? If there's not, I will read committee report. We have considered the matter of the Project Safe Neighborhood Grant, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to submit an application and accept, if offered, the 2023 Project Safe Neighborhood Grant sponsored by Northern Ohio Violent Crime Consortium, NOVCC. An emergency clause does apply. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Motion's been moved and properly seconded.
Question.
Question's been called. All in favor of the motion, use the voting sign aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda, number 4, the matter of going out for bids for the Elyria Public Safety Training Facility and being funded by the FBI. Yes, Ms. McKellips, please.
Through you, Mr. Chair, excuse me. We are requesting authorization to go out to bid for our facilities at our public safety training facility. I did pass out just a couple pieces of information as a reminder of, exactly what we're talking about. This is property that's located behind our CMG property on Gardner Street. Last year, we did go through the rezoning process to get the property to where we would be able to put this facility on it. And there's a small facility site plan and elevations for both the range support building. This is the building that'll go next to the ranges on the east side of the property. And it'll have a classroom, restrooms, offices, storage facilities. And then the other building, which I do not have a floor plan attached, is the simulation building. And I didn't include a floor plan because all it is 4 walls and 2 floors and a roof. All the mechanicals that'll end up in that facility will come at a later date. We do not have funds appropriated for this project at this time. I met with Assistant Finance Director, excuse me, Farrell. We will be looking to appropriate $2.7 million into general fund, miscellaneous government capital outlay. That's how much we will be getting from the FBI. We do not have it currently in hand. We have currently spent, or up to date, we have spent about $30,000 for design work, survey, that type of thing. We will be looking at starting construction this summer, if everything works well. We're currently going through the design review phase with community development and the building department. And as soon as that phase is completed and our actual building plans are completed, they're pretty close but not quite ready to submit for a building permit. We will want to go out to bid and see where these numbers come in. Right now, the building market, as you know, is hot and heavy, so there's inflated costs out there. So we'll see where we end up with, as far as these 2 buildings go, with our budget that we have with the FBI currently.
Are there any questions for Ms. McKellips? Yes, Ms. Davis.
Through you, Chair, does the FBI have an input, since it's their money, do they have an input in our design, or do they have an input on who you hire as the contractor?
They do not have input as far as who we hire. We go through our regular process here.
Okay.
We bid it out, we look at, the folks that are bidding on it, their qualifications, and usually lowest and best bid is the one we go with. As far as design, they have been partners with the city of Elyria, and the chief can speak more on that if you'd like. But they have been partners with us this whole time. Whenever we do any meetings, they're right there with us. Review of plans and information, they're also reviewing it at the same time.
Yeah, we meet with them regularly to collaborate with them on what they want, what we want, and what has worked for them at their other projects and what has not, so we don't make those same mistakes as well. So we are meeting with them pretty regularly to make sure we get it done right.
Thank you.
Mr. Snyder?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Engineer McKillips, many of the residents had, had concerns, and we had promised like some grass hill buffering. Are we still in process on that? I know the engineering has a lot of dirt they're working with around town, and I don't know, is there plans to bring in dirt for these mounds that we had discussed early on?
We are taking as much dirt as we can handle. So, and more, we want more dirt. So if anyone has dirt out there that's clean, so please send it our way. Yes, we do continue to plan on putting some type of earthen mound around the facility. We're also looking at putting a special liner over the fenced-in area to help buffer sound as well. So anything we can do to basically create that sound barrier that we're looking for. And I know, you know, last year council did say that they want to try to make sure that there's something in place for this facilities, and you know, we're gonna make sure something's done.
Thank you.
One thing I failed to mention, this was passed by utilities on 320 in Mrs. Mitchell's committee. So, are there any other questions? No more questions? I will read the committee report. We have considered the matter of the Elyria Public Safety Training Facility, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to advertise for bids and enter into a contract for the said facility buildings and appurtenances. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been moved and properly seconded.
Question.
Question's been called. All in favor, use the voting sign aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Motion carries. Was that Mrs. Mitchell that put that word in? Next item on the agenda, number 5, the matter of waiving building permit fees for the public safety training facility. Again, Ms. McKillips?
Thank you, through you, Chair. We're requesting waiver of all fees, building, water connection, sewer connection fees for this public safety training facility.
It's our building and we be paying ourselves. Are there any questions? Yes, Mr. Oswald, I'm
Through
sorry.
you, Mr. Chair, does anybody have a clue on how much that is approximately?
I'm not the building department, but I looked at the permit application, I threw some numbers together, and I'm thinking for the buildings, about $30,000. And so the water and sewer combined will probably be, let's say, less than 10,000.
That answer your question?
Through you, Mr. Chair, so that's building, so any other, like, tap-in fees and all that, same thing? That we won't be charging for all that kind of stuff also?
Correct.
All
And
building permit fees.
And I get it, you know, it's like, yeah, we're just paying ourselves, you know, back and forth, but, okay. Thank you.
Right, all related permit fees.
Related.
Any other questions? I'll read the committee report then. We have considered the matter of the Elyria Public Safety Training Facility building permit fees.
So you, Mr. Chair, I would take building out because the request is for all permit fees related to the project, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does this need to be an emergency? Okay. An ordinance authorizing the waiver of permit related fees for the said training facility, which is being funded by the FBI. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion's been moved and properly seconded.
Question?
Question's been called. All in favor of the motion, use the voting sign aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda, number 6, the matter of entering into a service contract with Strollo Architects for services for the design of a new central maintenance complex. Director Strozak.
Good evening, thank you. Through you, Chair. What we're looking here is for the mayor to be able to enter into a professional service contract for the new proposed central maintenance complex. We've tried this since 2018, 2019, and we're going to try again. What this is going to give, the project deliverables were going to be the written final program of spaces and defining of the spaces. It's going to give the dimension, floor plan, and site plan. It'll give a colored graphics of a presentation to City Council. And the biggest thing is going to be the statement of probable cost of construction. What this is going to do is this is going to take all the information that they need to give a probable cause or cost to build this complex to bring to council. There is, in the end, if this does go through, the amount then will be deducted from the final cost, but that's what we're looking to do.
Emergency clause will be requested because of time frame, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. This was passed by utilities on 320 as well in Mrs. Mitchell's committee. Just, I wanted everyone to be aware that. Can I open the floor up for questions for Mr. Yes, Ms. Davis.
Through you, Chair, I just want to ask one question. Could you tell, where is this company located? The architect company, where is it located?
Their main office is in Youngstown.
Youngstown?
Mm-hmm.
So they're Ohioanites, okay.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Strozak? In looking at the accounting, I believe, on this, should it be that not to exceed? You think?
We will need it. Through you, Mr. Chair, the referral, and mind you, this was several weeks ago, so there may be updates, indicates that funding will, for the expenditure to be determined by the finance director. I don't know, has there been a determined and not to exceed? Do we know that figure yet? And, I see Mr. Pileski chomping at the bit.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So many years ago, with the approval of council, I was able to set aside a little bit of cash from the sanitation fund into a newly created, at the time, sanitation capital fund, with the thought of using that money to develop or partial payment on the central maintenance garage. So it's been sitting in that fund for years and years. I can't really recall, there's probably somewhere $260,000 in that fund. So there's enough to cover this agreement, and that would be part of the sanitation's share of the project because they're part of the facility. So that appropriation is going to be discussed in the amendment to the 2024 permanent appropriation later in the meeting, but that's my recommendation, that we take it out of that fund.
Not to squirt ahead on this, but it shows as 175,000. Should we put that in as a not to exceed for this motion?
What is the contract amount?
I'm sorry?
Sorry, I didn't have my microphone on. Through you, Mr. Chair. Do we have a proposed contract amount? What is that amount?
Yes, 175,000.
It is 175,000? Okay.
Okay.
All right. That would be our not to exceed. Okay, thank you.
Yes, Mrs. Mitchell.
Thank you, Chair, through you. As Mr. Strozak said, we've been talking about the central maintenance garage for years. It is something that is sorely needed. We have new trucks that are sitting in the parking lot in all type of weather, so it really is needed. So thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Mitchell, and I wholeheartedly agree that this is, it's costing us a small fortune, the damage that the weather is doing to our equipment. Are there any other questions from the committee or non-committee members? If not, then I'll read the committee report. We have considered the matter of a professional service agreement with Strollo Architects, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into said agreement for engineering and architectural services for design of a new central maintenance complex. Emergency clause is requested, and not to exceed $175,000. Can I get a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
Motion's been moved and properly seconded. Excuse me.
Question.
Question's been called. All in favor, use the voting sign aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 7, the matter of rescinding and replacing ordinance 2020-136 sewer calculation for account holders who receive water service from other sources and sewer service from Elyria. Mr. Jacob? Or Ms. Connor, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Through you, Mr. Chair. What we're asking for is, back in 2020, the ordinance was written where, since rural water supplied some of our sewer customers, we did a computation because they did not have private meters for water. What we're asking now is to change that we're able to sell them private meters so we can monitor those in a better way. Because it started out with Four Seasons subdivision. There's 229 residents there, and with the new developments, there's already an active 142. It was okay with the 55 and older group, but these 142 are single-family homes, which they could be putting swimming pools in and other things. We don't offer pool credits to our Elyria residents that have our water and sewer. So we felt, to be equitable and fair to everyone, we would offer the sale of private meters and phase that in, so they would still get a credit for the time being, but they would have to, if they want the credit going forward, they would need to purchase a private meter.
Okay. Yes, go ahead, Mr. Jacob.
All we're trying to do is have everything equal. This is what people in Elyria do to get a sewer credit. They have a deduct meter, and we calculate it that way. We want to do the same for the people that get water from someone else and use our sewer services.
Be clear cut. Yes, Mr. Sarah.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So if I remember correctly, this came through because they had to water their lawns for the HOA when they were first built, and those numbers were pretty drastic. And we did that, isn't that like from June to August or November or something?
Yes, it was 6 months, starting in
Right.
June. And there was a 6-month look-back period to establish their average.
And I believe those lawns are in. That was only 4 seasons. And can they put meters in now if they choose to?
They should be able to.
Yes, if they want to continue to get a sewer credit, they'll have to purchase a meter from us, get a plumber to put it in, and they'll continue to get the sewer credit.
Thank you.
Ms. Deary, please.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm looking at the 2020 ordinance, and to piggyback on what Mr. Sarah said, I know that one of the arguments that was maintained or by the council person at that time for this ward was that these residents were unable to get a second sanitary deduct meter. And whether or not, I don't know if that was accurate or not, I don't know if it was an issue that rural water for these particular residents would not do so, or if that was just an assumption. But am I correct to state that we will do this, and we are in the position that we would be able to install, again, at the cost of the resident, and they would need to get their plumber to install it, but that you don't see any reason why, for example, a resident at Four Seasons would be able to purchase a meter from us and have it installed on rural water's infrastructure?
Right, my understanding is those are all PIG meters, so everything would be a deduct, and it would be in their resident where it would be read. We did speak with rural water. They're not interested in selling private meters to the citizens, so we would take that on.
All right, okay. I also noticed that in the proposal, looking for this, basically, there'd be a 12-month grace period from the point this would be enacted. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. Are you okay?
I just wanted to put that on the record, Mr. Chair. So, Law Director Deary took care of my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions? Just for the committee's knowledge, this was passed on 320 as well by utilities. No more questions? Yes, Mr. Jacob.
Mr. Chair, we'd like this passed as an emergency, so we can get,
Okay, we have it.
That letters out.
If there are no more questions, I'll read the committee report. We have considered the matter of rescinding and replacing ordinance 2020-136. Legislation to be drawn authorizing to rescind COD 937.20, alternative consumption calculation for sanitary sewer account holders served by a water system other than Elyria, replacing with new, stating they must have a second meter installed to be eligible for sewer credit. Emergency clause is requested. Could I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been moved and properly seconded. Question's been called. All in favor of the motion, use the voting sign aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is number 8, the matter of the distribution of the opioid settlement fund. This is one that I referred. Recently, it was brought up that the opioid money had begun to come in last year. It was roughly, it's a little bit over $150,000. We will be receiving that annually. Not the exact amount, though, close to that amount for the next 16 years. Is that correct, Director Pileski?
I believe
Or
it's
18 years.
18 years,
18
but I
years.
think we're in our second year.
We're in our second year, correct. In 2022, when the opioid settlement money first was announced, we all received a letter from Judge White about using a portion of this money to fund his drug court to help. It's where you go through, they try to do rehabilitation. If you're in the program for a full year and you pass certain curriculum, he has requested funds from this opioid settlement to maintain the operation of the drug court curriculum. Also, we had a request, of course, I thought about this, from the police department to use for drug enforcement. different types, whether that be vehicles, all different miscellaneous type items that this money could be used for. So it was my thought that we split this money 80-20, 80% for the police department, 20% for the courts. We did not want to make a specific purchase item after talking to Finance Director Pileski, because two things. We didn't want to put an exact dollar amount because what comes in annually will not be the same amount each year. There's going to be a little bit of fluctuation in it. So I put an 80-20, 80% for the Elyria Police Department, 20% for the drug court. By not mandating that it just go for drug vehicles or Narcan kits, it allows whoever is the mayor at that time and the finance director at that time and the chief of police at that time to make the decision for that year what to use that money for. It could be used for a drug car one year or an undercover and a half vehicle per year or Narcan supplies for a year. I'd rather leave it up to the professionals in the Elyria Police Department to make that decision. So what I brought forth is to start that distribution of funds. Right now, the finance director, I believe, is sitting on 153. Is that accurate?
Through you, somewhere in that neighborhood, yes.
It's right in the neighborhood of 153,000 that needs distributed. Yes, sir.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we did appropriate in the 2024 budget everything that we had at the time. We may have to reappropriate that because we just put it in like operating and maintenance. And,
right.
But we'll probably have to create like a police department under that fund and muni recovery court or something.
Correct.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just so I'm clear and for purposes of any forthcoming legislation, are you looking to allocate money we already have or future monies coming in or both?
Both. Current funds that we have and future funds in a percentage manner. That way, if we earmark them right now, the police department will be able to use them for who knows what the next drug is going to be 7 years from now. There may be something new that's out, and the police department and or the drug court will need a different function. We don't know that. So if we allocate it right now in a percentage mode. So.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to give a little background and remind you all that at the time that this class action was filed and Attorney Brian Balzer did really all the heavy lifting on this, there was quite a bit of data that was submitted at the time by Chief Whiteley, by Chief Benton of the fire department, because the settlement, when it was structured, specifically stated that political subdivisions, i.e. cities, needed to show to the best that we could what the economic impact of the opioid crisis was on cities, whether it was essentially first responders. So I did check with Attorney Balzer. The Muni Court Recovery Court would be appropriate to receive the money, but I do want to let you know that we were able to recoup this money due to the fact that it was the data from our police and fire that was submitted to show the overtime that was needed. Again, the Narcan, the vehicles, the wear and tear, all those things. I mean, we're talking thousands and thousands of pages of documents that were submitted. So I do want to let you know that. One thing I would caution as far as making allocations into the future, and I think if you do that, the percentage is the way to go because we don't know what the exact amounts are. But, and ordinance legislation can always be amended, but we know we will always have a police department. We know we will always have a fire department. I hope that Muni Court always has a recovery court, but we don't necessarily always know. We don't know that. A lot of it's grant driven. They could take another direction. So I would ask you to keep that in mind as well. One thing that was recently brought up, and I've not yet gotten an answer back from Attorney Balzer, is could some of this money be used for our ambulance bill? So I don't want to throw any more wrenches out there, but I do want to just put that out there as well. So, but thank you, and I didn't mean to steal your microphone.
No, more the merrier. Yes, Mr. Oswald.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I guess this was directed to you, Mr. Tolet, as far as how you derived at the 80-20, but I think Ms. Deary explained to me why the split was the 80-20, because more work was coming out of the police than with this recovery plan. Is that correct?
Correct. And how I looked at it, the number for the initial first year payment was $150,000 to fund the request that Judge White, who I have tremendous respect for, was $30,000. That represents 20% of the opioid settlement. Now, it might be $27,000 that he gets next year, or it might be $33,000. It's going to be somewhere in that vicinity, but just using the base numbers of what we have today is where I came up with the 80-20. I thought that was fair to both the police and the drug court. Yes, Ms. Davis.
Through you, Chair. Because I don't see where the fire department is not included, and I don't like that, because I know for a fact that the fire department was on calls for some of those too. I was there. And I just want to know, what are we going to give them for wear and tear on the vehicle? Maybe it could help pay down payment on the new fire truck we're getting, or help with that. I just think we need to give not just 80% to the police and none to the fire department. That's my take.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Pileski.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So currently we have roughly $150,000, but keep in mind that represents 2 years.
2 years.
So the annual payment is somewhere around $75,000 to $80,000 per year.
Okay. Yeah, about 20 grand.
I was going to say, through you, Mr. Chair, I believe 20-something grand a quarter or so, I think. We get it usually quarterly.
Yeah, I mean, we get quarterly, but the checks are so different. I think they come from different sources, actually. Like, we got one distribution for $2,000 here recently, so, but I think all total that it's close to $75,000, $80,000 a year. So.
Yes, Mr. Oswald.
Through you, Mr. Chair. I think Ms. Davis brings up a good point as far as the fire department. If they're, now I know this is all this work you've already done, but yeah, where does the help go to helping the fire department that they're doing a lot of work to? Was it any of these records that you were, submitting and all that paperwork, Mr. Deary?
I didn't understand the end of your question.
It seems like the fire department should be getting some kind of a payment out of this also. So what I was curious was, in all the paperwork, the thousands of pages that you were trying to come up with who this money should be divvied out to, was the fire department in any of these pages of documents that showed that they were going on calls and they should be getting some money along with the police department?
We all know that the fire department is responding to overdose calls. On this one, I personally looked at it as drug enforcement. That's why I proposed it, that way, as drug enforcement.
Okay.
Not to resupply fire department with Narcan or, and if that's the wish of the committee, we could amend, the committee report. You know, we could amend the motion itself, the referral. Yes, Ms. Davis.
Through you, Chair, and if I'm not wrong, and we can ask the chief to come forward to clear it up for me, is that they have to buy those Narcans. If I need Narcans to drive around in my car and I go to the fire department, I can get some from them. Who is paying for that? Isn't that coming out of their budget?
We get that all from the health department, and I don't think we're paying a fee for it, at this time.
At this time?
That's correct.
And if that would change 5 years from now, how this is written, council could change this formula down the road. Yes, Mr. Oswald.
Through you, Mr. Chair, and I think that's what I guess I was, right now, maybe it's a pilot program, and maybe it could be amended after you start seeing that, you know, things would change, but like I said, I thought she brought up a good point as far as where the money's going, but that's it. Thank you.
I was not aware of that health department, that's where it
Pretty
came
sure that's
from.
where we get it from.
Yes, Mr. Pileski.
Through you, Mr. Chair, so we get the Narcan from Lorraine County Health Department?
Yes, that's what was just,
So we aren't charged for it, but we do pay Lorraine County Health Department a fee every year, according to the Ohio Revised Code, because we closed our health department and Lorraine County, is taking care of Elyria, so we are charged an annual fee, somewhere around $70,000. It's not for Narcan, but it is for their services.
that's for everything from restaurant inspections to
Correct.
hotel pool inspections to,
Correct.
okay. Yes, you had another question before,
Sure
Ms.
do.
Davis.
I just still say that we need to amend it and give the fire department something.
What would your recommendation be?
Well, at least 10 to 20%. They have to run too. I've been there. I know they've been there for opiate drugs.
Mr. Oswald?
Through you, Mr. Chair, do you think we could get Mr. Panesi to come up and give his 2 cents? Would you like to?
So we respond on every time somebody calls 911, says there's a drug overdose or anything related to a drug overdose, we roll. Our paramedics usually now give Narcan intravenously through an IV. All of our drugs are supplied through UH, so we don't pay. But, you know, as far as the cost of the wear and tear and the staffing, and yeah, sure. I mean, it's, I can give you the numbers and the number of overdoses in the last few years, how they come in through 911 in the city, sure.
Yes, Mr. Sarah?
Through you, Mr. Chair, so would there be some way to label that 80% to include all of our safety forces and doled out as needed? You know, maybe we need a vehicle one time. Maybe we need to start paying for Narcan. You know, there's so many different possibilities going forward.
Safety Service Director Panowski.
Given the amount that we're discussing here, it's about $75,000 to $80,000 a year. Maybe it would make sense to give each of the 3 entities, the EPD, the Elyria Fire, and the Drug Court, each 33 1/3, and then move on. I mean, at the end of the day, it's about $25,000 a piece. We don't have to enter into a bunch of different accounting for such a small amount. It might be the cleanest way of giving each a little bit of something to help along the way. That might be the easiest way to do it for the sake of the finance department as well.
Right.
Just a suggestion.
Would the other members of the Finance Committee agree with that statement? Would you be good with that?
I'm good with that.
I would as well. Yes, Mr.
Through you,
Snyder.
Mr. Chair, to Law Director Deary. So this, if the municipal drug court were to like dissolve, we can always just up the two percentages or
Through you,
amend?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Right, yeah, it could always be subject to amend.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Mr. Sarah?
Through you, I do like that idea. I don't know, the numbers from the fire department. Would we still need to wait on them or not?
No.
Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Sarah, no, the fire department's numbers were submitted as part of the settlement for the lawsuit. So they're most definitely an acceptable use of settlement funds to be used for the fire department.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no more questions. Yes, I'm going to ask our law director to please reword this so it's correct. You can give us 1 minute. Yes, Safety Service Director Panowski.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I did confirm with Finance Director Pileski that he'd like one of them to be 33.34, so there's no residual. So you understand what I'm saying? Just that little bit hanging out there.
Police Department was first in line.
Well, maybe we can do the recovery court on that one, and that way we don't have any disputes created here this evening.
Recovery court, okay. Which, police? Okay, police, please. Yes, the police are getting the extra decimal point. Thank you for everyone's patience. This opioid settlement issue isn't over yet either. I think there's additional litigation, federal litigation with other companies ongoing as well. Okay, at this time, I'll read the committee report. We have considered the matter of the distribution of opioid settlement funds. Legislation be drawn authorizing an ordinance authorizing the finance director to distribute the said funds, each to police department, fire department, and Elyria Municipal Recovery Court. 33.33% for the recovery court, 33.33% for the fire department, 33.34% for the police department. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been moved and properly seconded.
Question.
Question's been called. All in favor, use the voting sign aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda, number 9, the matter of issuing one-year general obligation bond anticipation note. Director Pileski, this is a standing referral.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So in June, we have $5.83 million in one-year general obligation bond anticipation notes that are maturing. So $5.2 million of the $5.83 is the Chestnut Commons Connector Road. If you recall, that is a TIF project backed by special assessments. There is no TIF revenue coming in as yet because there's no development and the special assessments don't kick in, I think, for another 2 to 3 years. So it's my recommendation that we roll over the entire $5.2 million note and reissue for the same amount. The interest that we pay hopefully will recoup when we do start collecting tax increment financing payments. So it's my thought that we just roll over the entire $5.2 million. We have $330,000 note for a pumper truck that we purchased probably 2 to 3 years ago. So what I've been doing is paying $110,000 a year down on the note from the 2016 0.5% income tax fund. So my recommendation is to pay down another $110,000 and roll $220,000 into a new note. And the third and final part of the maturing notes is for a side loader garbage truck, which we purchased probably 3 to 4 years ago. I've got that down. I got $300,000 maturing. I've been paying $50,000 out of the sanitation fund. So it's my recommendation that we do the same thing, pay $50,000 out of existing monies in the sanitation fund, and roll the note for $250,000 for 1 year. So.
I'm going to make a comment on that. Because of the work that Director Pileski and Farrow have done, our bond rating has increased. So kudos to Director Pileski and Farrow. Very, very important. Saves the city a lot of money. Are there any questions from the committee or non-committee members? Mr. Oswald.
Through you, Mr. Chair, and maybe I'm wrong in thinking, but I thought when we did this TIF, it was personally guaranteed. Why isn't that person paying for this, and why are we rolling that payment over? Could you explain that one?
Yes, it's back with special assessments. So the special assessments will kick in if there's no development, no tax increment financing. But in the agreement, the special assessments didn't kick in for, maybe the law director remembers, 5 years, but it was extended, I believe last year when we settled the part of the litigation that was involved. So I believe we still have another 3 to 4 years before assessments will be coming in. But hopefully it'll develop and we'll get TIFs before that. But
okay, thank you.
Yeah.
If construction would start today on it and buildings start paying tax, then we would start collecting immediately. Any other questions from the committee? If not, I'll read the committee report. We have considered the matter of issuing a 1-year general obligation bond anticipation note, an ordinance authorizing the finance director to issue the said bond note. Is this an emergency, Director Pileski? Does this need to?
Through you, I don't believe we need to have an emergency. I think no, it takes 30 days to go into effect. So we don't need an emergency, but the ordinance takes 30 days to go into effect. And that's by Ohio Revised Code. So
it's not an emergency.
Okay, so this is not an emergency. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion's been moved and properly seconded.
Question.
Question's been called. All in favor of the motion, use the voting sign aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Number 10, the matter of amendments to the 2024 permanent appropriations. This is a standing referral. Director Pileski.
thank you, Mr. Chair. So we have just 3 items to clean up the 2024 permanent appropriations. So earlier in the meeting, we had the discussion about the FBI shooting range, I guess you call it, facility. So we're showing an increase of $2.5 million in the appropriation, but according to Engineer McKillop's discussion, we're getting 2.7 million, so, I think we'll go ahead and appropriate the 2.7 in capital outlay. And we'll raise the revenue estimates in the general fund for the grant money that's gonna come in, so it's, kind of a wash.
Okay.
And then in the water fund, water miscellaneous department, we left out the appropriation for reimbursements to the general fund, so amending the permanent to add $775,000 in the water fund for reimbursements. And then finally, in the sanitation building capital fund, appropriating $175,000, and that is for the item we discussed earlier about the architect and the design work for the new central maintenance garage. And again, that's coming out of the fund that was created many, many years ago, and we never really moved forward on the CMG, obviously, and the money's been sitting there collecting interest, so we might as well start using it, so.
Are there any questions for Director Plesky? If not, I will read the committee report. We have considered the matter of amendments to the 2024 permanent appropriations, an ordinance authorizing the approval of the attached list of amendments to the 2024 permanent appropriations. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been moved and properly seconded.
Question?
Question's been called. All in favor, use the voting sign aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Last item on the agenda, the Finance Committee, number 11, the matter of amending Elyria Codified Ordinance 176.01 to update the method which appointments to the Financial Review Board are made. Director Deary.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. You may recall several weeks and meetings ago, committee approved the appointment and establishment of a current financial review board. When my office took up the task of preparing the legislation to make that happen and taking a look at 176.01 as it stands, it became pretty apparent that the way that that board would be appointed is, at least in the way my stance is, looking at it, is that it's pretty unwieldy. I had a conversation with both the mayor and Attorney Craig, who are on the same page. I had some suggestions for them, as far as what I would propose the changes to be. So what you have before you this evening is my proposed reworking of that provision as far as how I think it would work better. As far as the makeup, it would still remain 5 members, would be bipartisan. The 4 members would remain appointed by council. The 5th would be appointed by the initial 4 members of the board. The term would remain the same. The eligibility requirements would remain the same. And I believe that pretty much sums it up, but I would welcome any questions that you have. I think that then, we'd be able to move forward and get this financial review board, set up.
Thank you. Are there any questions or concerns from the committee? Questions or concerns from non-committee members? If not, I'll read the committee report. We have considered the matter of the method by which Elyria City Council appoints to the Elyria Financial Review Board are made. Legislation be drawn authorizing an ordinance amending Elyria Codified Ordinance 176.01 to update appointments and members and terms of the Elyria Financial Review Board. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion's been moved and properly seconded.
Question?
Question's been called. All in favor, use a voting sign aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And at this time, I will accept a motion to adjourn of the Finance Committee.
Second.
Motion's been moved and properly seconded. Question's been called. All in favor, use a voting sign aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And rules will start with Mr. Sarah, if you want to take a break or...
Yeah, just a few minutes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Sarah. Okay. I'm moving back to my original seat.
I'm not leaving. I know. I'm gonna stick around. Yeah, why not? There could be. There's something else going on somewhere. Well, I'm just trying to make things up. Always look at the bright side of your life. Yeah. Hey, you know that song? Yeah. There you go. Hey, how's that? Oh, you should have been there.
Run a little harder.
Yeah.
Run a little harder.
I'm gonna find a space for you. I'm gonna go. You're gonna go? You gotta go. I was thinking about
I'm
you.
gonna tell you quit running.
I would love that.
I'll tell you quit running.
I'm gonna stay. I mean, I come back. No, I'm sorry. Oh, no, it's okay. Hey, Jack, really quick, I just wanted to say, I got a chance to talk with Law Director Deary about this one,
Okay.
and what she said satisfied me. So as far as this discussion, I'm happy to just make a quick comment, table it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all right. Thanks, Jack.
Yep, no problem.
Keep the meeting shorter. Oh, Jack, your mic's on.
All right. Good evening and welcome to the Rules Committee meeting for March 25th, 2024. We have 4 items on the agenda. The first would be the approval of the February 7th, 2024 Rules Committee meeting minutes. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second. Moved and properly second.
Question.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. The second item is the matter of amending Elyria Codified Ordinance 176.01 to update the method which appointments to the Financial Review Board are made. This is the item that was just passed by Finance. Can I get a motion? Well, is there any questions? If there's none, I'll read the committee report. An ordinance amending Elyria Codified Ordinance 176.01 to update appointments and members and terms of the Elyria Financial Review Board. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second. Moved and properly second.
Question.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Third item on the agenda is the matter of the creation of a 5-member Elyria Ambulatory Care Planning Committee, referred by Ward Councilperson Lippian and Council at Large Tolet. Mr. Lippian?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, and then I'll turn it over to Mr. Tolet, who referred this with me to committee. Not being a member of the Rules Committee, I can't vote on it, but I appreciate the opportunity to make the referral. First, to frame the debate and set a tone, I'm not interested in naming any company today or suggesting anything beyond Elyria-specific services. Others may, but my effort is to focus the conversation only on Elyria. We are afforded a unique opportunity to ensure the city of Elyria is proactive in regards to strategic planning and development for ambulatory services for the city of Elyria, which is really what the committee should be called. The idea is for our city to reduce our vulnerability and expand our strategic vision, incorporating a more nuanced approach. What the conclusions of the committee would be are unclear, but that's part of the need for a committee. If it can objectively assess future potentialities for ambulance services, it may help ensure Elyria is not taken by surprise, ensuring we choose priorities, a vision, and the committee could make a recommendation only. This should be for discussion only, I should add. I have no conclusions to draw today, only that we should talk about it, again, to be proactive. The committee might look at long-term financial strategies for community services, which I think could prove of benefit to our residents. And with that, I'll turn it over to my colleague, Mr. Tolet.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. After sitting in a meeting with the administration, one of the I have concerns about ambulatory services. I've never hid that from anyone, any of my colleagues or the administration. The solution to having a backup plan, though, in my opinion, after meeting with the administration and a member of our fire department, is that this matter be handled by the mayor's office, safety service director specifically, because he has to deal with the fire department and police department firsthand. And I think once their recommendation is made, then it could come back to council to express those ideas. But the mayor's office, in my opinion, from this point forward, should control the backup plan portion. I would, though, if the mayor would be appointing a committee to review the services that we're currently getting, to review those bills, I would gladly step forward to be put on a committee selected by the mayor, if I would be so honored as to be chosen. But to have an impartial, we don't direct union rules or guidance, and for us to be suggesting things, we would be getting outside of our lane. And several of my colleagues and the administration presented that to me in that manner, and that's my feeling on it now. Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions or comments?
I have a comment. So is it, the clarity on this, is this a separate committee that is this committee going to be a planning committee, but then through Mr. Tollett, is that another committee that's going to oversee other, what's currently on with the life care? Is that a separate committee to oversee the invoice, or is that going to be, did I misunderstand that? Or is the administration handling that currently at this point?
If you're asking me, there would, in my opinion, we should only have one committee at this time, and that committee would be appointed by the mayor. And that would be to do everything from review current invoices to respond if asked for ideas regarding a backup plan. It would kind of be an all-in-one committee that would do both. But I think that should be a directive of the safety service director, because we're getting out of our lane. I was getting out of my lane a little bit.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Chairman, through you, thank you, and I appreciate those comments by Mr. Tollett and that question from Councilman Stewart. The intent that I had when I notified you was of a committee was to specifically review the invoices that we've got. We have received the first one. We submitted that for payment. The director and I reviewed it. I know Mr. Bruning from the law director's office took a look at it. We are all in belief that the invoice that was submitted us was proper and where it needed to be. However, I still believe that there is a need to have somebody, and I was thinking of the Finance Committee chair, to sit down and look at those from a council standpoint. I mean, obviously, those invoices and bills are all going to be public record, and I'm not worried about that. But that way, there's somebody from council putting their eyes on the invoice, so if you have questions that you may not ask me, you would ask that individual, and that was going to be the finance chair. However, in lieu of what Councilman Tollett was discussing, I am well open to working with the Safety Service Director specifically to create that committee, if you will, to do looking at the invoices as well as taking a look at a bigger picture on our ambulance service to have that backup plan. But keeping in mind, we are currently 1 month in to a 4-year contract that I have to be cognitive of, that we're not crossing a line of a breach of contract or anything along those lines. I sat with Life Care. There are 2 main people on a Friday. We reviewed each of the line items, and I had several questions that they answered satisfactorily to my point. But I am open to creating that committee, but I also don't believe it needs to be 8, 7, 6, 5 people. It could be just a few people looking at that and having that discussion over the next few months. And as the councilman said, bring that back to council. But that part of it, I think, quite frankly, should fall under the Safety Service Director. I can be involved in that, but as Mr. Tollett stated, he is responsible for our first responders, i.e. police, fire, and dispatch. So that's kind of my take on it. Thank you.
Ms. Mitchell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, I'm not on this committee, so thank you. To the mayor, will we continue to have the representatives from Life Care attend those bill reviews?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, Ms. Mitchell, yes, that is a standing meeting that we will have. But quite frankly, I don't want to have a meeting. You guys know how I feel about having meetings just to have a meeting.
Yes.
If there is a concern on a specific invoice, then we will have that standing meeting to sit and review that. But I also think it will be important to have our finance chair sit in on that. I don't need 6 people. If the chair and myself, chairman of the finance committee and myself sat in with Life Care, that way if council had questions, maybe outside of what I saw, I think that would be appropriate.
Any other questions or comments? Mr. Lippian?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. So then my question is then, would the mayor's staff or the administrative staff convene a committee to look at strategic planning and development for future ambulatory care, not just a backup measure for emergency circumstances, but to be proactive and find a strategic vision for the future.
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's been my intention to start reviewing those things, discussing them with fire. I'm waiting for a report right now from fire about their, beliefs on ambulatory services, some numbers as far as runs and so forth and so on. My intention is to gather information this year and towards the end of this year, after also having an opportunity to review our relationship with Life Care under this current contract and a year's worth of invoices, to then start looking at what is our plan for the future. That gives us, quite frankly, 3 to 4 years, if that 5th year option under this contract is exercised, to put in place a plan should we need to. But it also gives an opportunity for this relationship that we have with Life Care to prove itself one way or the other, and to see exactly how those invoices come in. So that's the time frame I was working with myself, and we also have a number of things happening this year that might impact some of those conversations, and so some of those things was letting a couple of those things play out, so that the conversations or the thoughts about future ambulatory services would be a little further into the contract, but also we'd have some more data to review and consider.
So in saying all that, I guess my just for point of, what, Mr. Lippian, are you finished with what?
No, I just wanted to say point of order, Mr. Oswald.
I called Mr. Oswald first. Let's finish his hand first.
Through you, Mr. Chair. I'm kind of thinking it's premature right now. I get you want to be prepared, but I think that we have a great staff. We got a good safety service director that's going to get a handle on this. He's only a couple months into getting this information. And once he starts getting the information, he may see that this is going along just great. Okay, so it's like we pass some of these laws thinking that we're going to get a lot of traffic in an area, and then we don't have no traffic. So we were going to be so proactive to do all this work, and then we didn't need it. So I think that, like I said, I think we just need to cool our jets a little bit. Let the safety service director do his job, which he's very capable of, and then when he starts seeing that he may need some help, which he may or may not, then we should go with his direction. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Mr. Stewart? Did you read my notes? That's what I was going to say. I think we're just in the early stages of this contract and planning, and I respect, Mr. Tollett bringing this and Mr. Lippian, but I think we're just a little bit too early on in the start of this. But I would say that it's still advisory of having a committee together, an oversight committee, and regarding the invoicing, but maybe that's at a later date if, because I'm sure that the administration will be consuming a lot of time reviewing these invoices, and that's at a cost. That was kind of expressed as well. So I'm in favor of that oversight committee and looking in that, and when we feel that is in need, and I would think that it would be to give the safety service director that ample time to really kind of get his feet wet, look at what's ahead of him here, what's in front of him, and then, come back to us and saying, hey, listen, this is where things are at. Thank you.
Mr. Lippian?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. I have no question that the administration is perfectly capable of assessing the situation, and Mr. Tollett and I, by referring this today, didn't mean to suggest otherwise. We do not. However, I think it's important to state that one can never be proactive too early. It's always good to set your strategic vision as soon as possible, because then you avoid obstacles in the future. You can talk with any tactical or strategic leader, and they will tell you it is always a good idea to plan ahead. I fear that the reason that this has been occasioned to be discussed is because there wasn't a lot of active planning to get ahead of an issue, and I don't want us to be in a vulnerable situation in the future. So that said, we had the discussion. That's the reason Mr. Tollett and I referred this. That's good and healthy. I think that more discussion needs to be had in the future, and I look forward to conducting that discussion on and off the record with administration, who I'm sure is competently up to the task.
Any other questions or comments? So we'll put this in the pending items to be reviewed at a later date. Item number 4, Mr. Lippian.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, as we spoke. If I'm permitted a moment of levity, this may make today's 4 back-to-back committee meetings just a tad shorter. I had the chance to speak with Law Director Deary off the record. She rendered her legal opinion, and that the charter stipulates nonpartisan is delineated by, as evidenced by whether or not they voted in the most recent party primary. That explanation seems technically correct, so having referred, I will preference that my referral be tabled for now. If I have more to say, I may at a later date, but not being a member of the Rules Committee, therefore, I'll take my leave should you wish to conduct any further business, and hopefully we can make a long meeting just a hair shorter. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. If there's no further business before this committee, I'll accept a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and properly second.
Question.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nay. Motion carried. Night, everybody.